In the stillness of a crisp autumn evening, Jonathan Reeve sat alone in his expansive yet sparsely furnished office, the glow of his desk lamp the only light in the room. As an eminent astrophysicist with numerous accolades under his belt, Jonathan had always been more at home amidst the stars than with his own species. But tonight, his attention wasn't on the cosmos swirling beyond his window. Instead, his focus was caught in the whirlwind of an encrypted email that had appeared on his screen out of nowhere. The message was short and cryptic, its origin unknown. "Meet me at the old observatory at midnight. You're not alone in this universe. I need your help." The email had bypassed all security protocols with an ease that sent a shiver down his spine. Jonathan's mind raced as he pondered the sender's identity and the implications of the message. Was it a prank, or could it be something more? His curiosity piqued, he decided he would go, not because he was convinced, but because he could not let the mystery be. As midnight drew near, Jonathan drove his old, reliable Jeep towards the outskirts of town where the abandoned observatory stood like a forgotten sentinel on the hill. The building had been his second home during his early career, now overtaken by weeds and the relentless passage of time. He parked his car and approached the observatory. The moon cast eerie shadows across the crumbling structure, and a cold breeze whispered through the air, making the night feel even more surreal. Jonathan fumbled for his flashlight, then hesitated. A faint light was already emanating from within the observatory dome. Steeling his nerves, he pushed open the heavy metal door. The sight that met his eyes was the last thing he expected. A woman, seemingly in her mid-30s, stood before a makeshift setup of electronic equipment that clearly did not belong to any earthbound technology. Her hair was an unusual shade of silver, and her eyes, a piercing violet, regarded him with an intensity that bordered on the supernatural. "You came," she said, her voice melodic yet carrying a resonance that seemed to echo slightly, as if not entirely human. Jonathan, usually unflappable, found himself momentarily lost for words. "Received your message. Who are you, and what is all this?" he managed, gesturing to the alien technology. "My name is Alara," the woman began, her gaze never waning. "I am what you might call an elf, from a planet your species has yet to discover. I'm here because we need your help. Our worlds are more connected than you might think, and a danger that threatens us both has emerged." Jonathan, despite his scientific mind screaming for logical explanations, found himself drawn into Alara's improbable narrative. She explained that her people had been observing Earth for centuries, ensuring that the planet's development was not interfered with by other, less scrupulous alien races. Now, a rogue faction from her own world threatened to shatter that delicate balance. "Why come to me?" Jonathan asked, skepticism mingling with a burgeoning sense of intrigue. "Because you have discovered what many have overlooked. Your theories on multidimensional spacetime are not just theories. They are the beginnings of understanding the fabric that connects our universes. We need your insight to stop what is coming." Alara stepped closer, her eyes imploring. Jonathan could see the sincerity and desperation in her posture, the slight tremor of urgency in her voice. This was no hoax. This was something beyond his wildest academic hypotheses. "Help us, Jonathan Reeve. Help me save our worlds." As the weight of her request sank in, Jonathan realized that this might be the most important decision of his life. Before him stood not just a bridge between stars, but a guardian of peace. And she was asking for his help. In that moment, under the light of a distant world, Jonathan made his choice. He would help Alara. Whatever it took, he would embark on this journey, not just for himself, not just for Earth, but for the universe that suddenly seemed a lot smaller and much more fragile. As the dome of the old observatory hummed softly in the background, Jonathan's mind raced to catch up with the reality that Alara had unveiled. This was no longer a mere scientific inquiry, it was a call to action that stretched the bounds of his understanding of the universe. Alara, sensing his trepidation, offered a reassuring nod. "We need to act quickly. The faction that opposes us has discovered a way to manipulate the very threads of space-time," she explained, her fingers dancing over the glowing panels of her equipment. The displays cast otherworldly lights on her face, highlighting her ethereal beauty. Jonathan watched, fascinated as Ilara pulled up a holographic star map, pinpointing a location that flickered ominously. "This is where we believe the first breach will occur," she said. "If they succeed in tearing through the fabric of our dimensions, the consequences could be catastrophic for both our worlds." Understanding the gravity of the situation, Jonathan agreed to assist Ilara in her mission. His expertise in astrophysics had prepared him for many things, but this was beyond any terrestrial challenge he had ever faced. "What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the churn of his thoughts. "Your theories on gravitational waves might be the key to disrupting their efforts. We need to devise a countermeasure using your insights," Ilara replied, her tone urgent yet composed. Together, they pored over Jonathan's research papers and Ilara's advanced alien technology, seeking a fusion of ideas that could forge the solution they desperately needed. As they worked, Jonathan found himself impressed not only by Ilara's vast knowledge but also by the technology at her disposal. It was as if the laws of physics were mere suggestions to the devices she operated. Every so often she would pause to explain a concept or device in detail, helping him understand the alien science enough to integrate it with his own theories. Hours turned into nights and nights back into days as they tested their theories against simulations run on Ilara's equipment. Each simulation brought them closer to a viable solution, but time was a luxury they did not have. Reports of strange atmospheric phenomena started to surface on news outlets, unexplained weather patterns and auroras in regions that never witnessed them. Jonathan knew these were signs of the impending breach. Finally, after what seemed an eternity of trial and error, they crafted a device designed to emit a pulse that could theoretically stabilize the tear in spacetime. It was a long shot, but it was the best chance they had. The device itself was a marvel of engineering, combining human ingenuity and alien technology, a symbol of their collaboration. With the device ready, Ilara and Jonathan prepared to transport it to the location identified in the star map. The journey would be perilous, as the area was now being monitored by those who wished to exploit the breach for their own ends. They equipped themselves with all the necessary tools and safeguards, knowing that they were about to step into the unknown. As they set out, Jonathan felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with a profound sense of purpose. This mission was more than a scientific endeavor. It was a fight to protect not just one, but two worlds. The terrain underfoot was rugged, foreign, as Jonathan and Ilara approached the coordinates of the predicted breach. The sky above was a canvas of unnatural colors, an aurora of distress signals from the universe. Ilara led the way with unwavering determination, her device securely encased in a field of protective energy only her technology could generate. As they neared the location, the air grew thick with a palpable tension, an electric charge that made every hair stand on end. The ground vibrated with the energy of an impending catastrophe, a warning of the chaos to come if they failed. Ilara checked her instruments frequently, adjusting settings on the device as they walked. "Once we reach the breach site, we'll have to set up quickly. The instability could peak at any moment," Ilara briefed Jonathan, her voice low to blend with the howling wind. Jonathan nodded, his mind focused, recalling every detail of the plan they had devised. Suddenly, out of the eerie calm, a group of figures emerged. They were clad in dark suits that seemed to absorb the light around them, their faces obscured by visors that mirrored the turmoil in the skies. They moved with purpose and efficiency, encircling Jonathan and Ilara swiftly. "We cannot allow you to interfere," one of the figures spoke, his voice mechanically distorted. Ilara stood her ground, her eyes hardening with resolve. "These are the agents of the faction I warned you about," she whispered to Jonathan. "They want the breach to open fully. It would give them control over the power to manipulate the fabric between worlds." Without waiting for a response, Ilara activated a device on her wrist, sending out a pulse that momentarily disrupted the enemy's cloaking technology. In the brief chaos, Jonathan saw an opportunity. He lunged forward, grabbing a piece of fallen debris and using it to fend off an attacker. Ilara took advantage of the distraction to advance closer to the breach point. The battle was fierce and quick. Ilara and Jonathan worked in tandem, their movements synchronized after days of planning and preparation. Ilara's alien technology gave them the edge they needed, Her devices disoriented the attackers long enough for them to make a run toward the epicenter of the breach. Reaching the site, Jonathan set up the stabilization device as Alara held off their pursuers with a shield of energy. He worked with practiced speed, assembling the components under her guidance. The device hummed to life, its core glowing with a pulsating light that grew steadier with each passing second. "Now, Jonathan, activate it," Alara shouted over the din of their assailants regrouping. Jonathan slammed his hand down on the activation sequence. A wave of energy erupted from the device, rippling through the ground and up into the sky, meeting the swirling colors of the breach. The effect was immediate. The chaotic energies at the breach site began to calm, the colors in the sky fading from violent swirls to gentle waves. The ground settled, and the air cleared as if a storm had passed, leaving behind a calm clarity. Breathing heavily, Jonathan and Alara watched as their enemies retreated, their mission thwarted. The breach was stabilized, at least for now, the immediate danger averted. They exchanged a look of relief and accomplishment, aware that their fight was not over, but a crucial battle had been won. In the silence that followed, the bond between them solidified, forged in the heat of shared peril. Together, they had protected their worlds, but the victory was more than that. It was a promise of hope, a testament to the power of unity in the face of division. The fight would go on, but so would their alliance, stronger than ever. In the aftermath of their success at the breach site, Jonathan and Alara took a moment to assess their situation. The sky was clearer now, the previously chaotic colors subdued into a serene twilight. The land around them, once vibrating with unstable energies, lay quiet, as though it too breathed a sigh of relief. "We've bought ourselves some time, but that was just the first of many challenges we'll face," Alara said, her gaze scanning the horizon for any signs of a counterattack. Her device hummed softly on the ground next to her, its lights dimming as it entered a dormant state. Jonathan, feeling the weight of exhaustion, nodded in agreement. "We need to understand their strategy better. If we're going to anticipate their next move, we can't just be reactive," he suggested, his mind already turning over the possibilities of their adversaries' next steps. Alara retrieved her device and packed it away in a sleek, metallic case. "I agree. My people have some intelligence on their operations. It's risky, but we could infiltrate one of their outposts. It would give us a clearer picture of their plans and perhaps help us find a way to stop them permanently." Deciding that was their best course of action, they set off towards one of the known locations of their enemies' outposts. The journey was long and fraught with the danger of being discovered. They traveled mostly at night, using the darkness as a cloak against prying eyes. During these long, nocturnal treks, Jonathan learned more about Alara's world and its people. She spoke of vast forests that glowed with bioluminescent plants and cities built around the harmony of technology and nature, a stark contrast to the often cold, utilitarian human cities Jonathan knew. As they neared the outpost, Alara briefed Jonathan on their approach. "This will be delicate. We need to extract the information without alerting them to our presence. It's not just our safety at stake. Any suspicion could lead to increased security or a hastened execution of their plan." Using a combination of stealth and advanced technology, they managed to bypass the outer defenses of the outpost. Alara's familiarity with the technology used by her people gave them an edge, allowing them to navigate through security protocols that would have stumped any human tech. Inside, they found a labyrinth of corridors, leading deeper into the heart of the outpost. Alara led them expertly, her senses attuned to the slightest signals of alarm. They reached the central data hub, a room aglow with screens and pulsating indicators. Jonathan watched in awe as Alara interfaced with the system, her fingers moving with practiced ease. Screens flickered under her touch, data streaming faster than his eyes could follow. After what felt like an eternity held in a breath, Alara's posture relaxed slightly. "I've got it. I've downloaded their plans," she whispered, a triumphant smile flickering on her lips. But their success was short-lived. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost, a cacophony of warnings that shattered the silence. They had been discovered. With no time to lose, Alara grabbed Jonathan's arm, pulling him back the way they had come. They dodged patrols and navigated through the chaos of the alerted outpost, every second bringing them closer to potential capture. Bursting out into the cool night air, they ran with the desperation of the hunted. Behind them, the sounds of their pursuers echoed ominously. They needed to get back to their makeshift base, to analyze the stolen data and plan their next move. As they escaped into the sheltering darkness, Jonathan realized how much he had come to rely on Elara, not just as a guide or a fellow fighter in this conflict, but as a friend who bridged the vastness of cosmic solitude with the strength of shared purpose. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts, a fusion of Earth and alien resolve facing a common threat. The night enveloped Jonathan and Elara as they made their escape, the rough terrain underfoot challenging their every step. The outpost's alarms still echoed in the distance, a stark reminder of the close call they had just survived. They pushed through the underbrush, branches snapping under their hurried pace until they were far enough to slow down, their breaths fogging in the cold air. "Let's stop here for a moment," Elara suggested, pointing to a secluded nook beneath an overhanging rock. They needed to catch their breath, and more importantly, assess the data they had risked so much to obtain. As they huddled in the dim light of a portable scanner, Elara transferred the data from her device to a more readable format for Jonathan. The screen flickered, then stabilized, revealing complex diagrams, coded messages, and strategic plans. "Look here," Elara pointed at a series of coordinates displayed on the screen. "They plan to open another breach, larger and more unstable than the one we just contained. If they succeed, it could mean the end of the protective measures my people have put in place for your world." Jonathan's eyes narrowed as he absorbed the information. "We need to stop them, and soon. Do we have any idea how to counter this new threat?" Elara nodded, her expression grim. "I believe so. It will require creating a counter-resonance field, something that can disrupt the energy flow necessary for their device to function. But to do this, we'll need to construct a new device, one far more complex and powerful than the last." They discussed their options, plotting out the logistics of assembling such a device. It would require components difficult to procure on Earth and nearly impossible to obtain without attracting attention. "We'll need to make contact with my ship," Elara concluded. "They can provide us with the necessary parts. It's risky, but there's no other way." The decision made, they moved under the cover of darkness to a location Elara deemed safe for communication. She set up a compact, sophisticated communication device, aligning it with the celestial coordinates of her orbiting ship. As they waited for a response, Jonathan looked up at the stars, thinking about the vastness of the universe. It was a canvas of infinite mysteries, now more than ever intertwined with his own destiny. The silence of anticipation hung heavily between them until the device finally crackled to life. A voice, clear and authoritative, responded from the other end. "Elara, report." Elara quickly briefed her commander on their situation, the breach they had contained, the data they had secured, and their need for additional resources. The commander was silent for a moment before responding. "Understood. We'll arrange a drop at the coordinates you provided. Be cautious, Elara. Your actions have undoubtedly raised alarms among your adversaries." With the communication complete, Elara turned to Jonathan. "We have a narrow window to retrieve the components once they arrive. Once we have them, we can begin construction on the device." They spent the remainder of the night planning their next steps, each aware of the looming threat that grew with each passing hour. As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the land, they prepared to move to the drop site, a secluded area where Elara's people could safely deliver what they needed without being detected by Earth's monitoring systems. The stakes were higher now, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Yet, amidst the daunting challenge, a resilient bond had formed, one forged in the crucible of shared danger and mutual trust. As they set out to intercept the drop, Jonathan felt a resolve hardening within him, fueled by the knowledge that the fate of two worlds rested in their hands. Elara and Jonathan arrived at the designated drop site just as the first rays of the sun tinged the sky with hints of orange and pink. The location was an isolated clearing surrounded by dense woods, chosen for its obscurity and ease of access from multiple escape routes. They set up a perimeter of sensors, alien technology that Elara had provided, capable of detecting any approach, earthly or otherwise. As they waited, Jonathan could feel the tension building. The importance of their mission weighed heavily on him, each minute stretching longer than the last. He glanced at Alara, who was checking her device for any signals of the incoming drop. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by a subtle whirring sound, barely perceptible. Alara motioned to Jonathan to stay low. They watched as a small, unmarked craft appeared overhead, skillfully avoiding detection by conventional means. It hovered above the clearing, silent except for the soft hum of its anti-gravity engines. With precision, the craft lowered a package wrapped in a light-absorbing material, making it nearly invisible against the dark soil of the forest floor. As soon as the package touched down, the craft ascended rapidly, disappearing into the morning sky. "Let's move," Alara whispered, leading the way towards the package. They approached cautiously, scanning the surroundings for any signs of trouble. Once they reached the package, Alara quickly deactivated the cloaking wrap around it, revealing several components, each emitting a faint glow of energy. "These are the parts we need to build the counter-resonance device," Alara explained as she carefully examined each component to ensure they were undamaged. Jonathan helped her gather the items, packing them into a specially designed containment unit. As they prepared to leave the drop site, Alara's sensors suddenly chirped a warning. She checked the readings. A group was approaching fast. "We've got company." "Looks like they didn't take long to figure out something was happening here," she said, urgency sharpening her voice. They quickly erased any signs of their presence and retreated into the woods, moving towards one of the pre-planned escape routes. The sound of their pursuers grew louder, branches breaking under hurried footsteps not far behind them. Alara led Jonathan through a maze of trees, her knowledge of tactical maneuvers evident as she chose paths that were difficult to follow. Despite their efforts, the sounds of their pursuers persisted, drawing closer. Suddenly, Alara stopped, signaling Jonathan to do the same. She set up a small device on the ground, a defensive measure. As their pursuers rounded a bend in the forest path, the device emitted a powerful sonic pulse. The pursuers staggered, disoriented by the sudden assault on their senses, giving Alara and Jonathan the chance to increase their lead. They continued their escape, dodging between trees and underbrush, until they finally emerged near an old railway line that was no longer in use. Following the tracks would lead them back to their base, a hidden workshop where they could begin constructing the device. As they walked along the rails, Jonathan felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. They had the components, and they had evaded capture, but the challenge of building and deploying the device loomed large. He looked over at Alara, her face set in determination, and felt a renewed confidence. Together, they had faced incredible odds, and together, they would see this through. Their path was clear, and their resolve was firm. The next steps they took would be crucial, not just for their own survival, but for the safety of all who lived under the stars. Back at their hidden workshop, Jonathan and Alara wasted no time in getting to work. The workshop was a cavernous space, filled with tools and machines that Jonathan had accumulated over the years, now repurposed for their monumental task. The components they had retrieved were laid out meticulously on a large workbench, each piece alien in architecture but incredible in potential. Alara took the lead in assembling the device. Her hands moved with practiced ease, each component fitting seamlessly with the next, as if guided by an invisible hand. Jonathan assisted where he could, handling the tools and materials unfamiliar to his training but crucial to their success. As they worked, Alara explained the function of each part. "This module here will generate the counter-resonance field. It must be precisely calibrated, or else the field could destabilize instead of stabilize," she said, her focus intense. Jonathan nodded, his understanding deepening with each explanation, his respect for Alara's expertise growing. The hours passed, the sun traveling across the sky and then disappearing, leaving them under the soft glow of overhead lights. They spoke little, the urgency of their task a constant pressure that allowed for little else. But in those moments of shared silence, a bond forged in the fires of adversity grew ever stronger. Finally, the device was complete. It stood on the workbench, a testament to human ingenuity and alien technology combined, sleek and humming softly with contained power. Alara stepped back, her face weary but satisfied. "It's ready," she announced, her voice steady despite the fatigue. Now we just need to deploy it, Jonathan added, looking at the device with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Yes, and soon. The data we retrieved indicates that the next breach attempt is imminent. We have to intercept them before they can initiate it, Elara replied, checking the device one last time. They planned their route to the predicted breach location, a remote area known for its unusual electromagnetic anomalies, now understood to be influenced by previous extraterrestrial interventions. They loaded the device onto a transport vehicle, a rugged all-terrain model capable of handling the rough landscape. The journey to the breach site was tense, each mile bringing them closer to a confrontation they could no longer avoid. As they neared the location, the familiar signs of a breach in preparation greeted them: distorted air, a low humming sound that seemed to resonate with the fabric of reality itself. They set up the device, aligning it according to the coordinates they had calculated. Elara adjusted the settings, her hands steady even as the air around them grew thick with the power of the impending breach. Jonathan watched the horizon, his mind alert for any sign of their adversaries. Sure enough, shadows moved in the distance, figures emerging to intercept them. They're here, he warned, positioning himself between the device and the approaching threat. Elara activated the device, and it began to emit a deep, pulsating sound, the ground vibrating under their feet. The counter-resonance field expanded, enveloping the area in a protective bubble. As their enemies approached, they were met with resistance from the field. It slowed them, confused them, buying Elara and Jonathan the time they needed. The breach's energy, once chaotic and menacing, began to stabilize, the colors in the sky settling into a calm gradient. Seeing their efforts failing, the adversaries withdrew, retreating back into the shadows from which they had emerged. Jonathan and Elara watched them go, the relief palpable between them. The breach stabilized fully, the threat averted. They had done it. They had saved their worlds from imminent destruction. As they packed up their equipment, the sky above them was clear, the stars shining brightly as if in approval of their success. Elara turned to Jonathan, a smile breaking through her exhaustion. "We've done it, Jonathan." "Thank you." Jonathan returned the smile, his heart light for the first time in what felt like forever. "No, Elara. Thank you. We did it together." As they headed back to their base, the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, a new day marking the beginning of a new chapter for both their worlds. United by a common cause, they had changed the fate of the universe, one pulse at a time.